It's your fucking life, so own that shit. I figured that's the way to start out a video, right? There. End of video. Bye. No. But really, how do I start this one? I've got my coffee, my vape. It's morning. I just finished a few things that I needed to get done. Trying to keep up with my business, keeping up with family, keeping up with my responsibilities. Well, or maybe not so much. Trying to get a few things done. And during my day, I generally do quite a bit of background thinking about life in general. And once in a while, I'll have an idea, or rather, somebody will inspire me, whether it be somebody I listen to in a video or online or elsewhere, or a family member, and it will inspire me to do a little bit of research. Like this morning, I was looking up the people pleaser syndrome. You know, the idea that, and this is this has many facets to it, I guess. There are people who just want to make everyone else happy for the sake of not wanting to make waves or cause problems. Then there are people who want to help everyone else because it makes them feel good inside. And then there are people who say want to help people because they think that there's something wrong with the other person or other people in general. And the way that we view ourselves and the way that we view other people, they're very skewed. You know, there's a word, Satori. No, not Satori. I'm sorry. That's a different word. It was a word I came across, Sonder, and it's a newer word, but it's the realization that everyone else around you leads a life that's just as deep and complex and interesting as your own, in their own way, but that everybody isn't just an actor in your play. And many people have an attitude of, well, you know, I can't live my life happily, so I'm going to make everyone else's miserable. And this is, of course, going to the extreme. And people don't generally feel this way inside. I don't think people sit down and plan out to be a complete asshole to people. And it's difficult for us to gauge our intention and purpose and why we do things. You know, stepping back and looking at the true reasons why we feel the way we feel or the things we say, you know, can tell us a lot about ourselves. Now, one thing is that a person who is... I read an article earlier, and it was 5 characteristics of stupid people. And it was perfect. It was very simple and to the point, but it was... the first one was always pointing the finger at other people. And I have come across so many people like that in my life, who, when there's something wrong with their life, they can't take accountability and say, well, I fucked up. I didn't do a good enough job. I'm going to learn from my failure and I'm going to move forward. No, they have to point the finger at the government, at their boss, at their parents. I mean, I know people who are my age who are still blaming their parents for the way that they are. I'm like, I'm sorry, this is just absurdity. If you're sitting here completely aware that you were affected in certain ways, then it's up to you to change that. You can't go back in time and make your parents care more or make your parents change the way they raised you. And while I'm on that note, some of these people who complain about their parents, they had great parents. They were just shitty kids. Or maybe the parents did their best, but just didn't fulfill what the kid wanted, because there's some spoiled brats out there. You know, I know some kids who treat their... Well, I've come across people who treat their parents like crap or treat their kids like crap. It's a family issue where it's just become the norm. I mean, there's always been infighting among people, but not trying to get off track there. What I was conveying there was that... sometimes we live our lives for ourselves, which is what this video here is about. Sometimes we live it for other people, and some parents want to control their children and say, well, you should go to this college and go to this school and you should get this job. And our society has pushed us to think that we're cookie cutter people, that we go to school and we're punched through, punch the clock, get a job, do the routine, and we retire and we die. That's complete bullshit. It's absolute absurdity. And the fact that so many people are living their lives that way shows that we haven't quite got to the point where we have self-analyzed enough and been self-critical enough as a species to realize that emergence itself, which emergence is life, if you will. It's the idea that one ant can do nothing by itself. But if you get enough ants together, they can create a colony, and they can create homes, they can forage, one ant can't do all of this. It's a matter of a group effort. And with humans, we want to think that we're independent. We want to think we're individuals. But we do need each other. When people say, well, be an independent thinker and just ignore everything you've been taught, it's impossible. You can't. Because the words that you're using to think about these thoughts in your mind, the language which you're using, the technical ideas with which you're basing what you believe and what you think on, have all been taught to you. And many of them have been experienced, sure, but let's say you have an opinion about, the country of, any country. You may have an opinion about some European country, say Switzerland, and maybe you've never been there. I know a lot of people have, but I guess this is an example because it's like I was listening one time, somebody said, you can spend a lifetime studying about Egypt, but you'll learn more by spending 1 week there. And it's so true. And that's how it is with anything. Everybody wants to be able to have something that makes them an independent person, an individual. But at the same time, we all base our ideas on each other. And if you have an idea for an amazing product, well, you need to cater to the people that you're selling it to. If you come up with an idea for a way to move society forward, well, it shows that you're working as a group to try to help everyone. It's a matter of finding a balance between helping the world and helping yourself. It's like you got one hand to help yourself and one hand to help others. And some people get so wrapped up in helping the world, they fail to help themselves. And others are so damn selfish that they can't do a goddamn thing to help other people or even care. And when I say help, I'm not talking about even lending a physical hand or sending money to a cause. I'm talking about giving people the space and the ability to explain themselves so we can all have a rational discourse about life instead of fighting and pointing the finger. That was another one of the characteristics of stupid people, is that they always resort to not only blame, but if they can't win or they're not getting results with what they're trying to achieve, they'll get angry and frustrated. How many people do you know who seem very civil at first, and the minute you disagree with them, you're the enemy, you're an asshole, you're an idiot, you're ignorant, you're a shill, whatever it might be. And I imagine for a lot of you if you don't stick your neck out there and speak your mind in big groups of people, you might not have had that feedback. But I guarantee you, if you're a YouTuber and you make a political statement, or if you make a statement about religion, politics, ethics, anything like that, you're always going to find one person, at least, who thinks you're just a complete buffoon asshole, and that's okay. Because that ties into another aspect of being human, which is the fact that you will always have somebody that doesn't like you. There are some people who really want to be liked, and one of the most important hurdles to overcome to being a happy person, to living a happy life, is to stop giving a shit what people think about you. And this took a little while because when a person hears that, they may think, well, that's absurd. Of course you have to care what people think about you. You do, to a degree. And it's not for the sake of being liked. That's the difference. You want other people to respect you and like you because you want to know that you're making their lives easier and they're making your life easier, that you're working together, that people respect you, not just for things you've accomplished or how much money you have or all the bullshit in society today. The idea that, like Kardashians, can be famous just for being famous, just for being rich. Wealthy people are famous just for being rich. I mean, look at Trump. He's a perfect example. The guy's never done anything himself. He hires people to do all of his bookkeeping. He hires people to do all of his landscaping. He hires people for the businesses. He's merely a name, but people look up to that name because it has money behind it, and that means success to society. It's a complete absurdity to me because success isn't how many people like you, nor is it what you've really accomplished, but how you integrate. How can you integrate into society? And I guess it's like this. If you're to walk into a room full of people, can you get along with those people regardless of how they think or who they are? Can you spread yourself through different cultures and say, hey, I respect that you're different than I am, and I'm curious to know more about you and your life and your lifestyle, and I'm not going to let it offend me that you are different than I am. I could sit here and scoff at religion all day long because I'm not religious, or I could scoff at one political party or another. It's all mindless bullshit. If it makes you feel bad in your heart to talk about things, sometimes it has to be done, but most often you can walk away from it, because your life, my life, they're different lives. If we want to lead a happy life, is the more we try to compare ourselves to other people, and the more we try to give us, delude ourselves on what success really means, then we'll never be happy. We'll always be looking for that next thing. And I'll tell you, there's no magic pill, there's no magic mindset that fixes life. The real mindset, that mental alchemy, that turning, lead into gold, is being able to take any situation, no matter how shitty or strange, and turn it around to find a positive aspect of it. And it is possible. And in fact, in MRIs that they've done on the brain, and people who think positive actually have a different reaction to bad news or to negative things happening. Their brains function differently because they've trained themselves to, instead of saying, oh fuck, it happened to me again, it's like, what can I learn from this? If you walk up and you're stuck in a long line, instead of complaining that, well, I'm always stuck in lines, you could say, well, maybe this gives me an opportunity to think about something that I needed to resolve, or to find a positive, to create your own path in there. Because life really is a bunch of interweaving paths, and we cross each other now and again, and we're all doing our best. That's, well, not all of us doing our best. Some people aren't doing shit, and that's hard too, because, we're trying to cope with lazy people who, and I'm not saying people who don't work, I'm saying lazy-minded people, lazy thinkers, people who refuse to take accountability. Now, there are stupid people who are unable to think on a certain level, but there are people who choose to ignore it. Those are the ones who have closed their eyes to the reality that life really is about understanding one another in balance. I shouldn't say that's what it's about, but rather, that's how you're going to lead a happier life. And nobody can teach us that, nobody can convince us or prove that to us. We can only do it ourselves. And like anything else, you can only try and see how it works for you. Which would bring me to a comparison of life in general. If you don't try, you'll never know whether you could have succeeded or not. Most people who look back on their lives, nobody regrets the things that they tried and failed at. They regret the things that we never tried. That idea that we had when we were 20 or 30 or 40, and then we get older and older and we never really do anything with it. Regrets are more painful than failures. Big time. And generally we don't regret our failures. We learn from them. And that's another mindset. Some people, when they do fail, it actually causes them anxiety and depression. Other people, when they fail, it's exciting. It gives them a boost to say, well, what did I do wrong and how can I fix it this time? Because self-pity and loathing is not going to do anything. All that does is takes other people's energy away from their own lives and what they're trying to do, to feel sorry for us and the job we lost, or, oh darn, and maybe that sounds harsh, but, I guess I've been through some of my own mental anguish in my life, it was only recently that I really started to consider how losing my dad and watching him die of cancer when I was 15, how that affected me so much through my life, but how I blocked it out. Said, oh well, we all die. But it made me a little bit more numb to death, but more sensitive to other people's needs as well. In other words, those who have been through a war zone and been able to live and survive through a major bombing campaign or whatnot. Sometimes these people are very outspoken. They're they're not defeated. Let's just put it that way. They're inspired to make things better. And I think that that's what all we have as humans is that inspiration, because it's hard to find inspiration. It's hard to pull that out of our minds. When we're young, we have a lot more motivation. We know how to fix the world. When I was 20, I knew all the world's problems and how to fix them. And then when I was 30, I started realizing my own problems. And now that I'm 40, I have worked on my own problems and the world problems, and kind of stepped back for a minute to realize that I'm just a guy among 7 billion people, my ideas are no better or worse than anyone else's. I'm not a genius. I'm not an idiot. I'm not, I'm not any extreme. I'm just an average dude. And I guess that's why I like making YouTube videos, to talk about these things, because, I'm not a celebrity personality because I can't imagine like going on YouTube and talking about these things when you're a celebrity or you're already famous, let's say, and then people say, oh yeah, what he's saying must be true. People can look at my video and say, who is this dude? They don't have to feel like they need to agree. This like for politics, for example. If a Republican group, has somebody saying something within their group, even if they don't agree with it, they have to stick with the group. And the same with the Democrats, and I don't even want to make it political at all, but that's, it wasn't supposed to be. What we do is we tend to stick with the people who are in our groups and with our mindsets. And so the same thing, if there's a famous actor or a famous musician who we highly revere and respect, and they make a statement about something, some people will think, well, I used to think this way, but if my hero thinks this, then maybe I need to change my opinion. And that's important, because we don't want to just follow the herd, because we trust other people's judgment better than our own. So, on an aspect, it's the yin and yang. We do learn from other people, and they learn from us. We learn from ourselves and our mistakes. Sometimes another person does know better, but ultimately we can follow our hearts. But even that falls short sometimes, because our intuition is based on our prior experience. So I can never be sure if a decision I'm making today is pre-programmed, if it's something that I'm doing just automatically, because, self-analysis takes a lifetime. And at a point you set it aside and say, all right, let this machine run. I'm not going to sit here and nitpick everything I do in my life, but I want to be aware of the decisions I make when I make them and why I make them. Because that's the only way to grow, is through observation. So that's my ramble for this morning. I could go on and on, but it'll probably just get tongue-tied in the end and keep repeating myself. So I'll talk to y'all later, and have a wonderful day. Take care.